Hi Kobi, welcome to Mexico. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure to be here.
Kobi, you're an expert in the conflictive topic of the Middle East. So I want to ask you, Israel has bombed military bases in Syria. In what degree does this risk the relationship between Israel and Russia?
If we look to the situation in Syria 7 years after the beginning of the civil war, the terrible genocide that we have here, the winners of this struggle are Russia and Iran. And they lead the reality right now. And the crisis in Syria gave the Iranian regime, actually in the first time in the history, an opportunity to create a real threat against Israel on the ground in the Golan Heights, because Iran is located 1,000 miles away from Israel. But the fact that they fought with the Assad regime, and right now they have a huge project to be on the border, build a new Hezbollah, bring thousands of Shiite militias from all over Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Sri Lanka. And they plan to build a strategic infrastructure in Syria, which means Air Force base, Navy base, and 50,000 missiles that can be a real threat on the central part of Israel and all the Israeli strategic spots. That's unacceptable. That's a red line with the Israeli point of view. Israel cannot live with the situation that the Iranians will create this crazy threat for the future of Israel. And Nadia, if you look to the Arab Spring across the Middle East, Iran is actually involved in every crisis all over, from Iraq, Syria. They actually control Lebanon. They are in Yemen. They are in Africa. They are in South America, all over the globe. And they are the largest generator for terror infrastructure across the Middle East. So that's why they become the major threat for Israel. And that's why you've heard that Israel attack again and again the Iranian bases over Syria, because we used the opportunity that they just started the project. They don't have too many units right now in Syria, but they may have. If we're going to wait 3-4 years, that's going to be too late for Israel. So that's why we attack again and again. It may affect our relationship with Russia, as you ask. Probably, maybe. But, if Israel will continue to attack under the radar and do not take responsibility, that will not embarrass Putin and Russia. And they understand the Israeli needs. They understand the Israeli concerns. But they will not cross the road and stop the unique relationship that they have with the Iranians for so many years. They fought together. They have a huge economic deals. All the nuclear facilities actually were supplied to the Iranians by Russia. So they will keep their cooperation, but if, on the other hand, the dialogue with Israel is important for Putin. So if Israel will continue to attack under the radar without taking the responsibility, that's going to work. And there is a key point right now. There is a great opportunity if President Trump is going to take on May 12 his decision to cancel the deal and put the sanctions against the Iranians. That's going to affect dramatically their economy. And that's going to affect the people on the street of Tehran who demonstrate right now almost every day. And that's maybe the regime will be more focused on interior issues, and they will change their priority, and maybe will leave their project in Syria, which is critical for Israel. So the President Trump decision on May 12 may affect dramatically the geopolitical situation across the Middle East.
It is out of the ordinary that in plain 21st century, Syria is the scenario of many unjust deaths at the view of the whole world. Why in so many years of conflict, this massacre has not been controlled?
First of all, in my point of view, Nadia, the civil war in Syria is genocide. And the question is why the international community didn't do anything in the last 6-7 years. There's a lot of things that we could do, the international community and the United States, 6-7 years ago in the beginning of the circumstances, that unfortunately didn't work out. For example, create no-fly zone above Syria. rearm and support the moderate Sunnis who started the struggle against Assad 6-7 years ago. And even in the chemical crisis that we have in 2013 with President Obama, that he planned to operate a huge American strike over Syria. Unfortunately, Putin was smart enough to convince Assad, take the deal, destroy your chemical capability and stay in your position and prevent an American strike over Syria. And, you know, when we look to the situation in Syria for so many years, there is a clear phenomena which is characterize the whole situation. There is a clear decline of the American influence across the Middle East since the withdrawal from Iraq in 2012. And there is a dramatic increasing of the Russia influence in Russia. And in my point of view, the Russian deployment over Syria creates some challenges to the Israeli Air Force. They monitor every Israeli aircraft that take off 300 miles from Syria. They control the whole air movement above Syria. We have Israeli generals in the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv that coordinate the air movement above Syria and across the Middle East with the Russian generals in Syria. So there is a dialogue, there is a talk between the generals, but I don't think it's going to change the strategic interest of Putin, who is cooperating with the Iranians in the end of the day. And the major problem with, from the Israeli point of view is the fact that the United States, our best allies, is not part of the game. Now, how the American strike over Syria 3 weeks ago with the cruise missiles attack affect the situation? Not really. You know, there is a strategic message to the Iranians and to North Korea leader that if United States think it's a vital interest, she can use their military capability. But I don't think it's affect dramatically the stability of Assad regime. I thought the American strike over Syria should be stronger, much more effective. For example, destroy 2 or 3 Air Force bases, attack his palace to send him a clear message. You're going to keep attacking your people with nuclear weapons. Your regime is in danger. You're not going to stay in your position. So I would accept stronger attack over Syria. And United States were really careful with the Russian deployment over Syria. They sent them a message a few hours before the attack, we're going to attack those sites. So Trump was very careful with the Russia who controlled the reality in Syria. That's the bottom line.
Now that we are talking about this chaos, how much has this disaster in Syria affect his neighboring state of Israel?
Well, first of all, what's happened in Syria, it's against our values as a democratic society. But unfortunately, we said from the beginning of the circumstances in Syria that what's happened there, it's not Israeli business unless it's going to touch the Israeli vital interests. And it did, because we saw that the Iranian regime tried to remove advanced technology from Syria to Lebanon. And there is a red line strategy from the Israeli point of view regarding to the situation in Syria. One, Israel said very clearly, we will not allow the Iranians and the Hezbollah to be minimum 20 miles from the border and target an Israeli target. That's not going to work. This is number one. Number two, red line, we will not allow the Iranians to remove advanced technology from Syria to Lebanon. When I'm saying advanced technology, Nadia, I mean long-distance missiles that can reach every Israeli targets, every Israeli Air Force base, every Israeli command center. I'm talking about anti-air batteries that can create some challenges to the Israeli Air Force. That's why Israel attacked 25, 30 times those convoys that try to cross the border from Syria to Lebanon. And the third red line, as I told you, is do not allow the Iranians to build a strategic infrastructure over Syria, as I told you. Air Force base, Navy base. We just attacked a few weeks ago the drone squadron over Syria. And we killed the commanders of this squadron to send them clear message. We're not going to allow you to do that. So the Iranians are in pressure. They are facing a very tough situation with their economy. They got a lot of demonstrations of the streets in Tehran of the young generation. And they are waiting to the critical decision of President Trump on May 12th. That's why, in my point of view, they did not respond to the Israeli attack. They may do it later, but that's why we have a high alert along the Golan Heights, ready for any response. But I think if they're going to respond to any Israeli attack, that's going to be a great opportunity for Israel to attack all over Syria, the Iranian bases, to send a clear message. That's a red line. That's critical for the future of Israel. We cannot live with the situation that they have 130,000 missiles ready to be launched from Lebanon and another crazy number of missiles, very advanced technology, ready to be launched from Syria. That's unacceptable when we talk about the future of Israel.
Without a doubt, the neighborhood is not friendly. On the other side, we have Hezbollah in the north and Hamas around the corner. How threatening are these organizations to Israel nowadays?
You're right. Well, the Iranians have a lot of influence, and they rearm and fund the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza, in spite of the fact that they are Sunnis. Because in Syria, they are fighting the Sunnis. In Gaza, they support the Sunnis because they have the same interest. And they try to create a multi-front challenge for Israel. That next war, next conflict, Israel is going to be attacked from all over, from Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza at the same time. Now, the situation right now that the Israeli deterrence is very effective. The Hamas, who is facing a very tough humanitarian crisis over Gaza, we have an effective deterrence against the Hamas. But people ask why we have a humanitarian crisis over Gaza. Because the money that the international community sent to Gaza to have a better life for the people of Gaza, the Hamas take the money and dig the tunnels and rearm themselves instead of having better life for the people of Gaza. So it's a very unstable situation in Gaza, and Israel found an unbelievable technology that can indicate those tunnels. So we destroy, and we're going to destroy all of them in the next couple months. We build a huge obstacle along Gaza Strip also to prevent those tunnels. And along the Lebanese border, we have a very effective deterrence. But you're right, we have 130,000 missiles. We have an election in Lebanon next week. So the Hezbollah and the Iranians who control the situation in Lebanon, they want to increase dramatically their political power over Lebanon. But I don't think the Iranians will give an order to the Hezbollah to launch those 130 missiles today. They keep it because they plan on the strategic level to deter Israel to deter the nuclear project. That's why they build this crazy capability in Lebanon, to deter Israel. But I think the direct conflict that we have right now in Syria may create an escalation, and maybe next few weeks we'll have a multi-front challenge and an escalation that will have a war between Israel, the Iranians in Syria, or maybe Iran, the Hezbollah, and the Hamas and Jihad Islamic in Gaza, all over. That's where the IDF is ready right now to face the challenge in all those areas. Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria at the same time. That's the challenge. And I think one of the major challenge for Israel is how we convince the international community about the Iranian threat. How we tell them the Iranians are not the good guys. They create the all unstable situation across the Middle East. That's a big challenge. You know why? Because since the nuclear deal was signed in Vienna 3 years ago, the Western countries, they have an unbelievable economic deal with the Iranians. American companies, European countries. That's critical for their economy. They know if President Trump is going to cancel the deal, all those economic deals are going to stop. That's why they try to convince the Iranians and President Trump, let's change the deal. Let's try to have better inspection. Let's put the ballistic missiles project that can reach New York City as part of the, and let's put some limitations on the fact that the Iranians are the largest generator of terror infrastructure because they involve all over. That's the problem. Now, that's why the president's decision to stop and maybe cancel the deal, it's a great decision from the Israeli point of view. Now, the question, what's going to happen in the end of the day? If he's going to put a lot of pressure on the Iranian regime to compromise and put more issues, more subject as part of the deal, then maybe Syria will be part of it. That's great for Israel. If not, in the end of the day, Israel will stay with the Iranian threat, and we're going to face this challenge alone because the United States is not part of it. So we have the crisis with the Iranians and the escalation. We are facing those march of return along Gaza Strip. And the embassy, the American embassy, is going to be in Jerusalem in the middle of the... All those tough issues are going to create a very unstable situation along Gaza, the West Bank, and maybe in the Golan Heights also. So that's why we must be ready to all those challenges at the same time, just two weeks in advance.
Kobi, finally, Israel is celebrating 70 years of independence. In these important dates, what are the most important challenges that Israel has to face ahead?
I think the Iranian threat along the borders and the Iranian nuclear project, that's the major threat, because Israel has so many achievements in the last 70 years that if you ask me what's the most significant challenge that we are facing, is the threat for Iran. The Iranians, a strategic threat in Syria and Lebanon and Gaza, and the option that next 6, 7, 8 years they will have a nuclear project and nuclear weapons. That's unacceptable. Israel cannot live with the situation. This crazy regime will have the option to destroy Israel. Never. So that's why, if I'm taking a picture, one picture, from the 70 years of independence of Israel, as a soldier and an Israeli citizen, as a commander, is the 2 F-15 Israelis fighting above Auschwitz and send a clear message to all over the globe. Never again. 75 years ago, millions of Jews lost their life in this terrible Holocaust. Today, thanks God, we have Israel, we have the Jewish state, and we have to keep the right military capability to defend ourselves, which unfortunately we did not have 75 years ago. That's the message to everybody. It's not going to happen anymore.
Totally agree. Kobi, thank you. Thank you for your time. And of course, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Nadia. I'm so glad to be here.